Kim, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So much to talk to you about, and obviously we're going to come on to the safety of MPs, particularly in the light of the failed assassination attempt, unfortunately, on Donald Trump. And I know you're very keen to talk about that. But I just wanted to start by saying, how difficult is it for you to watch things like that? Because I always worry when we have anybody on as a guest and we have to kind of relive those moments. It is important, though, for people to remember it. How do you find dealing with that?
Yeah, it's tough. Obviously, what happened to us, for me, is still totally unbelievable. The reality is, unfortunately, really horrible things do sometimes happen to good people, and many people have got experiences of that, but it still doesn't feel real, Jo's murder. I mean, what we've tried to do since that day is create a very positive and powerful legacy for Jo, focusing on how she lived rather than on how she died. But equally, it is important to have conversations about the state of our politics and actually more broadly the state of society and, you know, the threats, the abuse, the intimidation of people working in politics, but actually more broadly, you know, women in public life generally and actually, you know, the epidemic of violence against women and girls more broadly. So there's lots of different layers.
It's just out, isn't there?
Exactly.
So all of those things kind of intertwine. Are you... I'm assuming you and your family particularly hoped that something good would come out of Jo's death, murder. I mean, it sounds brutal, but I know that you're very sure that that's what it is and that's how we must address it. Did you hope that things would change? How disappointed are you that they don't seem to have changed? They seem to have got worse.
Yeah, I think there's two things. I mean, look, we've created an extremely powerful legacy for Jo. We've got the Jo Cox Foundation that does fantastic work on a range of subjects, whether that's loneliness or civility in public life. We do an event called the Great Get Together that we do every year where people across the whole country come together in their communities and celebrate the things we have in common. We've got the Jo Cox Way bike ride setting off tomorrow from Yorkshire to London with over 80 cyclists taking part, half women, brilliant to see. More women than ever getting on their bikes. We've got the Run for Jo. So we've got the powerful personal legacy for Jo. Then we start to think about politics and we look at our political culture. And you're right, I really did hope that Jo's murder would be a turning point. And sadly, that hasn't happened. We've had another MP murdered and we have seen horrific abuse, threats and intimidation of people, candidates in the recent general election. Tyres being slashed, people being shouted at in the street, you know, horrendous behaviour. We've seen misogyny, we've seen sexism, we've also seen racism, we've seen homophobia. And it's 2024, and I just think, how are we still seeing this vile behaviour? And how have we lost the art of disagreeing well? You do it every day. You do it sometimes well, sometimes less well. But you do it, and we've got to be able to have different opinions and different views and be able to express those views, but respectfully and in a civilised manner. And I'm worried about that.
But how... with that in mind, what do you think could possibly be the answer to that? Like, how do we move forward in sorting that out?
And that's what I'm interested in. You know, you talked about panic alarms and things. Yes, the police have got an important job to do. The parliamentary authorities have got an important job to do to address keeping people safe. That's very important. But I'm more interested in how we can change that culture. And there's different ways of doing that. Firstly, how do we behave as politicians? Whether you're an MP, whether you're a councillor, you've got a role in public life, you need to behave respectfully, you need to behave sensibly. Then you've got to look at the role of the media. The media covers some of the horrible stuff. It often doesn't cover the good stuff.
And social media fuels these fires as well of hatred, doesn't it? That's a real
the algorithms on social media channels, you know, getting people stuck in their echo chambers. So you've got behaviour of people in public life. You've got the media and the role it plays. You've got social media. Then you've also got, let's be honest, personal responsibility. You know, we've all got anger. We've all got frustration about things. But the thing for me is, what do you do with that anger? I'm really angry about what's happened to my life. I'm absolutely furious that someone took my sister from me. But what I've tried to do is channel that anger into something positive and something productive. And that's the choice that I think everybody's got. But the other important point is political education and political literacy. So a lot of people don't like the system, but they've never had it explained to them what the system is. They don't understand what an MP can and can't do. They don't understand what councillors can and can't do, and therefore they get frustrated and angry. And I understand that. So I think there's a piece of work to be done.
Do you think that's something that needs to be introduced into schools at a younger age?
Yeah, I do.
Choose politics.
I would have loved to have known more about local politics at school.
And I try and go to a school every week in this job, and the kids are really good and they're really engaged and we have a good time. But also the teachers and the staff at the end will come up and say, I didn't know that. I didn't realise that. But why would they? Because they've never been taught it. So I think there's a piece of work to be done there which will engage people. Because, look, we need good people in public life. We need good women in public life. And at the minute, it's not a very attractive world to work in.
Yeah.
There's the safety aspect, there's the abuse, the threats, the intimidation. And we know we've lost good, strong women from public life. Not always just because of the abuse and the threats, but it is cited regularly as a reason why people have stepped away.
Were you not scared, though, because of what happened to Jo, of stepping into that life?
Yeah, if I'm honest.
Because it's a very brave thing to do when you've seen that happen in front of you to someone you love, to go, I'm going to take that over now and do that.
Yeah, and it is scary. I won't pretend otherwise, but Jo used to say to me, politics needs good people. And if good people don't step forward, then that's when you do end up with idiots.
Yeah.
You know, so even though it can be a scary world, it's important. And I want to try and be a role model to other young women coming through.
And do you think is Jo... Well, it's a stupid question, she's always in my mind, saying I lost my sister, always in my mind. But when you're making decisions, particularly political decisions now, in your constituency, which her constituency, which has been broadened now, hasn't it? So your Spen Valley.
Yes.
Every decision you make, is she in your mind, in your thoughts, and hearing her voice?
Yeah, I'm inspired by Jo every day, and I'm sure you are by your sister and people we've all lost. You know, we can only go on in the hope that we're doing them proud and we're doing things that they would want us to do.
It's a wonderful legacy for her children to be proud of as well.
Yeah.
Because they must be very proud of what she has
And is it correct you carry 3 panic alarms?
Yeah, so again, going back to the safety and security side of it, look, you know, we get given advice by the police and we get given advice by the parliamentary authorities, and I take all the advice I'm given. But part of that is because I'm an MP, but part of that, sadly, is because I'm a woman. You know, and we all, you know, women out there day in and day out, we've all done the thing where you carry your keys in your hand at night, you know, and that's about changing that culture, isn't it? It's about changing the culture, and it shouldn't be about the behaviour of women. A lot of this is actually addressing the behaviour of men, and what we can do to change the culture around, you know, how men treat women, and not all men.
You're right, a lot of it is what we can do to protect ourselves, which is important, but it's what we can do to stop needing
but that's
so
the thing
much
I would
protection.
say, it's almost like we're always saying to women, this is what you should do, protect yourself. The education should be for young men to say this is how not to behave, or this is how to behave, to make women feel safe.
Absolutely.
Just very, very quickly, because we've been talking about it, President Joe Biden has stepped aside. We've got Kamala Harris now in the race against Donald Trump. Would you like to see a female American president?
Freaking
I
would. Yes. This is the thing. Look, we need representation.
She's a northerner.
She's a northerner. You know, we need good, strong women in public life. We need women of colour in public life. And that's why we've got to smash those barriers down, and we've got to create a culture that makes women feel they can step forward. But yeah, I would love to see a woman leader of the free world.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Listen, I'm sure your sister would be immensely proud of everything you're doing in her name. It's wonderful what you're doing. We wish you well. We hope you stay safe and do everything that you set out to do, particularly in Jo's name. Thank you very much, Kimberly.
Thank you very much.